Lake Balaton, the largest lake in Europe, is located in Transdanubia, the western part of Hungary. It's 77 kilometers long and 14 kilometers wide at its broadest point, can be called shallow-watered, and is suitable for swimming in its entirety. Its shore of 197 kilometers is bordered by 4 types of landscapes: the gentle hills of Somogy all along the southern shore, the nature reserve of the Little Balatone with its marshes and reeds formed around the mouth of the River Zala at the west end of the lake, the grape and wine district on the former volcanic mountains known as the uplands of Balatone stretching to the Bakony Mountains on the north shore, and the lowlands of Mezőföld surrounding the eastern basin of the lake. The water of Lake Balaton warms up to 28 to 29 degrees Celsius in summer and is suitable for bathing even on late spring and early autumn days, not to mention water sports, as the lake is a paradise for yachtsmen and surfers. It's also perfect for fishing all year round. Animal life, but mainly that of birds, of Little Balatone is unique, while the whole region of Lake Balaton is rich in rare plants. The unparalleled beauty and diversity of the region has inspired painters, poets, and writers. The vast quantity of scientific or literary works, guidebooks, and albums of paintings and photos of Lake Balaton could fill up whole libraries. Past times are recalled by castles and fortresses, churches and ruins of monasteries, old mansions, peasant houses with arched porches, thatched-roofed wine cellars, watermills, antique bridges, and magnificent press houses. It's generally acknowledged that the southern shore with its shallow waters is especially suitable for swimmers, sunbathers, and small children. While the North Shore best suits the demands of excursionists interested in nature's beauties and monuments. There are post offices, money changes, ATMs, and tourist information offices everywhere, while newsstands offering German, English, or French papers can only be found in bigger settlements. Lake Balaton is easily accessible from the whole of Europe. It's hardly more than a 100-kilometer ride on the motorway from Budapest or from the Austrian border. Balaton Világos. Here's a settlement created from the recently joined holiday resorts Balaton Aliga and Balaton Világos, situated on the easternmost point of the lake. The lake is the widest here at 14 kilometers. Several kilometers of pine forest line the shore, and cottages have been built right next to the lake. The railway runs on the high shores from where travelers coming by train first catch sight of the Balatone. There's a marvelous view from the top of the Lys wall. Painter Géza Mészöly drew inspiration from this very landscape when painting his pictures of Lake Balaton. Siófok is the second largest town of the Balatone region. Its railway station was built in 1863, almost at the same time as the Sió Sluice and the harbor. The park in front of the station features a work by Imre Varga, a sculpture of the composer Imre Kálmán standing in the music pavilion. The house where the Prince of Operetta was born is located nearby. Today, it's a museum where visitors can see his piano, personal belongings, manuscripts, and photos. Siófok, which officially became a town in 1968, is the busiest place around Balatone. There are many shops, ice cream bars, boutiques, restaurants, casinos, bars, discotheques, and pizzerias in its streets, promenades, and parks. Hungarian cuisine is far from being the only one represented here, as there are Italian, Chinese, Mexican, and Greek restaurants in town. Visitors may find a Western steakhouse, a Californian cafe, or even a cocktail bar in Tahitian style. The services are of European standard, and there's music on the terraces all day long. Mór Jókai, the great Hungarian novelist, spent the last summer of his life here in 1904, but it was also the favorite of other writers and artists like Gyula Krudi and Frigyes Karinthy. Multi-story luxury hotels line one lane, ready to meet your every need, but tourists can also opt for motels or bed and breakfasts. Everybody will find the accommodation and spare time activity they wish for. Nightlife is the liveliest in Siófok, and the first airport receiving private planes was built in this area. The Great Lido offers its guests all-day entertainment, including, among others, many sporting facilities, such as sailing, but scooters and bicycles are also available for rent. The symbol of Siófok is the 45-meter-high water tower built in 1912. From its observation deck, the whole town can be seen. At the western end of the harbor is the meteorological and storm forecast station with its characteristic shape. Specialists working in the glass tower prepare the most up-to-date weather forecasts, measure the water temperature, and pass this information along to the 24 storm forecast stations. The flashing lights visible from everywhere warn sailors and swimmers when a storm is approaching. 30 flashes mean that wind of more than 40 kilometers per hour will arrive within an hour, and 60 flashes mean that wind of more than 60 kilometers per hour is to be expected. Storm lamps ensure the safety of people on the lake in high season between the 1st of May and the 30th of September. The Sió sluice, built at the same time as the harbor, enabled regulation of the water surface and the placement of boats into the channel, leading eventually into the Danube River. As early as 1878, a mobile bathing house on rails with 80 cabins was built here on the initiative of the Festetics family. The life of the harbor is busy and exciting, even today. The statue of Kálmán Székelyhidi was erected among the bowers of the exquisitely kept rose garden. He was the first man to swim across Lake Balatone, although many give this glory to Baron Veselényi. There was a steamer line taking vacationers from the harbor here to Balaton Füred, even at the end of the 1800s. Today, the sights of the northern shore can be approached not only by scheduled ships, but there are also pleasure boats with various musical or gastronomical services available for tourists. Belonging to Schiafolk's 17-kilometer shore is Balaton Seeplak, known as Silver Beach. Zamardi is an ancient village, first mentioned in 1082. Part of the Tihan fortress in the years of 1500, it was totally destroyed in Turkish times and reconstructed in 1696. Its church of Baroque style was built in 1774. Its most beautiful old edifice is a land house today. This characteristic peasant house with porch has been standing here since 1847, and its interiors are proof that it was owned by a wealthy peasant. Starting from here in the direction of the hillside full of vineyards, we can find the so-called Donkey Stone. Supposedly, the village was named after it. According to some researchers, it used to be a Celtic sacrificial site. There's a magnificent view from the top of the vineyards above, with the Tihan Peninsula on the opposite side of the lake, and the 1.5-kilometer-long crossing connecting Santod with Tihan is also perfectly visible. It was the Tihan Abbacy that had the Fairy Inn constructed in Santod. Mihai Csokonai Vitéz wrote his poem entitled To the Echo in Tihan here. Since ancient times, there's been a crossing place here where the lake is only 1.5 kilometers wide. The wooden barges were rowed by ferrymen under the control of the chief. Travelers were waiting in the inns at the two ports of the ferry, and the ferrymen communicated with each other by smoke signals. Starting in 1928, travelers had been transported by motorboats, while the current ports have been operating since the 1960s. Those seeking a very pleasant evening activity can walk down the dock leading to the ferry, lined by snack bars and shops, to watch the sailors bustling about. The trip across the lake is shorter and more pleasant this way, and also costs less than traveling around the lake. Santod is the oldest settlement of Somogy County. King Andrew I, who's buried in the crypt of Tihan Abbey, bestowed 18 estates on the monastery in 1055, including the present Santod Pusta, where not only the ferrymen of Santod, but also peasants, stock breeders, and fishermen lived and worked for the abbacy. The largest and most splendid house was that of the bailiffs. The poet and folk song collector Adam Pálóci Horváth, who was a regular participant in the Helicon festivals of Keste, lived here and rented the farmstead from 1787. The three-story barn was capable of storing 4,000 hundredweights of grain. Today, a folklore shop is situated here. During the Turkish reign, the village was destroyed just like the neighboring Zamardi and was reconstructed long after the end of Turkish occupation. The currently standing group of 30 buildings has been continuously reshaped from 1740. We can see a silo and a barn for livestock here. Life on the plain is exhibited in the small museum inside the servants' quarters. The original smokehouses, the marvelous interiors and furnishings recall old times. We can also get to know a lot of interesting facts about fishing and boating on Lake Balaton. This dual, T-shaped vaulted wine cellar is so large that even horse carts could drive into its galleries. Supposedly, the inhabitants of the whole village with their herds could hide here in the period of the insurrection at the turn of the 17th and 18th centuries. The capacity of its casks was 5,200 hectoliters. The Baroque chapel of St. Christopher stands on a 143-meter hill from where we can enjoy a magnificent panorama of Lake Balaton. On the plains, there's more to be had than just comfortable accommodation and typical Hungarian meals in the two country taverns. Tourists can also go horse riding or coach riding and take part in various summer activities, such as the Horse Cart Rider Championship, the Dog Show, or the Jacob Day Festival. You can easily spend a whole day in Szántód Puszta. The one and only Balaton Aquarium is located here, showing the most typical species of fish. The most popular fish of Lake Balaton is the delicious white-fleshed boneless pike perch. Here, however, we can see others like perches, carps, and breams. At the fish stands, we can have an even closer look at them. Balatonföldvár. It's one of the neatest towns on Lake Balatone and is full of flowers. No wonder, as it was originally built to be a holiday resort. The settlement, together with the village Köröshegy lying behind it, were in possession of the Széchenyi family. The building of the city was commissioned in 1872 with the specific goal of creating a holiday resort full of promenades and parks. In 1896, there were 40 villas and hotels standing here together with the recently renovated harbor, and even the Sycamore-lined promenade of more than a kilometer dates from that time. The semicircular breakwater of the Mole is a favorite place for evening walks, and the view of the sunset is the most magnificent from here. The first casino was built here. Protruding out over the lake, it has maintained its modern look. A pleasant sight of the inner bay is Pigeon Island, built from the mud of the lake removed when the harbor was deepened. It was named after the pigeon houses decorating its small bridge, still visible today. The richest and most famous personalities of the age had their villas built in Balatonföldvár. Among others, the family of Turley Champagne, the Stummer family of chocolate fame, the composer Ferenc Lehár, and the pioneer of railway electrification, Kálmán Kandó. Further inland stands the villa of the actress Gizi Boyer and that of Frigyes Korányi. The town was named after the Celtic fortress called Föld, which means earth, found during archaeological excavations. For this reason, the panorama road running on top of the Löss wall is called the Celtic Promenade. The view is gorgeous from Gönyes summit, mainly towards Tihan, but when the weather's nice, even Baroque is visible. Shade Brook flows into the lake at Balatonföldvár. One of the 3 beaches was built at its mouth. The lidos of Zamardi and Balatonföldvár are perhaps the best ones on the southern shore due to their view of Tihan. The railway station, opened to the public in 1928, is one of the most magnificent buildings of its kind. The church, built from red stone in neo-Romanesque style, stands on the opposite side of the street, lined by shops and cafes. passing it, we reach Jubilee Square, which is adorned by a fountain, also made of redstone. Köröshegy. This has always been a favorite destination of guests spending their holidays in Balatonföldvár. The settlement is famous for its wines, as it always has been, and there's a marvelous view of the village built around its two churches from the surrounding hills. The almost fortress-like church with its stocky tower and Gothic windows stands in the center of the village and is well known for the organ concerts given here. The ground plan echoes the traditions of Franciscan monks. The 6 Gothic windows stand out on the southern facade of the church. Rosette windows appear above its peaked stone-framed portal. Balaton Sarso. Balaton Sarso is a small, quiet holiday resort on the southern shore which has developed only recently, including the addition of large park areas. The Attila József Memorial Museum is only one of the reasons for visiting here today. Balaton Szemes. This is a village built on a hillside overlooking Lake Balatone, almost in the middle of the southern shore. A postal museum is situated in the Baroque stables of an old mail coach switching station dating back to the 18th century. The actual center of Balaton Szemes is the railway station, the beach, and the docks, where pleasant walks can be taken on summer evenings. The holiday resort Balaton Lella was established on the old flood area of Balatone, with nicely cultivated vineyards lying on the hills surrounding the town in the south. The famous military road leading to Fehérvár, mentioned in the deed of foundation of Tihan, ran behind the hills of Balaton Lella. The center of Balaton Lella is the square behind the railway station with its Mediterranean flair. The promenade starting from here and the sycamore-lined avenue leading to the lake. Balatonboglár, the international town of grapes and wine, is the center of the southern Balaton wine region. The Castle Hill, planted with pines, is a nature reserve with the characteristic site of the spherical lookout tower on top, named after János Xantus. There are 2 chapels standing on top of the nearby graveyard hill. The evangelical one is painted blue, while the Catholic one is painted red. The chapels are the scene of exhibitions of fine arts, literary, and musical programs. While good views looking north can be had from the spherical lookout tower, a magnificent view opens on the slopes of Somogy Hill from the chapels. The constantly developing town has improved its profile even further with the addition of new shopping streets and parks. Its harbor used to be a ferry port. Now, sailboats and pleasure boats depart from here. The Sycamore Beach is the scene of sporting and cultural events throughout the whole season. A swimming competition across the lake is organized in July, a harvest festival around the 20th of August, and the holiday season winds down with a farewell festival in the middle of September. The highest point of the South Shore is the twin-peaked Fonyod Hill, consisting of the 207-meter-high Sheepbush Hill and the 233-meter-high Castle Hill. Of course, we can enjoy a delightful view from the peaks, but even the way up to the top is spectacular since Fonyod is just opposite Balaton. Fonyod consists of 4 resorts, Fonyodliget, Sándortelep, Bélatelep, and also Bélatelep. The latter 2 were named after Count Béla Zichy, who parceled out his own estate in order to create holiday resorts. The former villa of composer Jenő Huska is also situated in Bélatelep. The main site of the town is the beautifully reconstructed border fortress surrounded with a deep moat dating back to Turkish times. Tournaments are usually organized here in August. In this region, where stones aren't abundant, to build a fort meant mud and earth stamped between stakes in the ground, with marshy, reedy areas lying where only the locals were familiar with the right way. Opposite the castle spouts the sparkling mineral water of Fonyod, which is available bottled in every supermarket. The one and only remaining folk monument is the wine press house, with 4 columns and a triangular facade operating as a country inn today. Balaton Fanbash. The settlement lying between the Nagyberek Nature Reserve and Lake Balaton has been called Balaton Fanbash since 1912 because of the pine trees planted here. It was first mentioned as a holiday resort in the 1930s. Its main site is the narrow-gauged small railway, the only one in the Balaton area. Unfortunately, there are fewer and fewer railways of this type countrywide. Today, a locomotive, a diesel hydraulic train, and a diesel mechanical train are on duty, taking passengers to the untouched territory of the Whitewater Marsh, which is the natural habitat of 123 species of birds. The terminus of the small railway are the spa thermal baths of Chista Plain, where the waters are mainly effective in the treatment of illnesses of the motor system. The romantic wine cellars of Tashka and Bujak, famous for its embroidery, are situated not far from here. Venturesome railway fans who endeavor to ride the train are awarded with a diploma of merit. And tourists can also go horse riding in Balaton Fanbash. Balaton Mariafürdő. The history of Balaton Mariafürdő is interwoven with that of Balaton Fanbash. After the grapefruit louse catastrophe, when the vineyards of the Balatone region were destroyed at the end of the last century, new vine stocks were planted here in the immune sand. The monumental work on a plot of 300 acres was led by Imre Széchenyi, and the village was named after his wife. Besides the cultivation of vineyards, bathing facilities were speedily developed, railway transportation started, and the harbor was built. Balaton Maria offers a splendid panorama of the western shore due to its location. It lies near the nature reserves of Nagybereg and Little Balaton, as well as the town of Keszthely. When the weather is nice, we can feast our eyes on the most magnificent fresh-watered bath from the lookout tower, as the great geographer Jenő Csolnoky called Lake Balaton. Balaton Szentgyörgy is one of the villages bearing the name of the lake, though not located on its shore. The brilliant white of the so-called Csillagvár, a fortress with a star-shaped ground plan deep inside the berry forest, is visible from a great distance. It was long believed to be the unharmed remembrance of life at the border forts. Today, we're aware that Laszlo Festicic, the eccentric nobleman, had it constructed as a hunting lodge around 1820. The footed house is nearly 200 years old and a marvelous example of local folk architecture. The mouth of the Zala River is a dividing line between the northern and southern shores. It's also the gate of the nature reserve of Little Balaton, preserved in its ancient integrity. Crossing the bridge, we're accompanied by rows of horse chestnut trees, leading from there, via Fenekpuszta, all the way to Keszthely. Keszthely. Keszthely, with its 23,000 inhabitants, is the biggest town of the Balatone region, is rich in monuments and sites, and has a lovely atmosphere. There's a promenade lined by gorgeous houses built in classicist and eclectic style, leading from the main square to the Festicic castle. Starting from here to the west, we reach the neo-Baroque palace of the Balaton Museum, where the evolution of the flora and fauna of the lake is exhibited. The stone collection is also significant. Another site of Keszthely is the Georgikon Farm Museum, founded by the Festicic family. The beautifully renovated buildings of two magnificent old hotels, the Balaton and Hulam, stand opposite the Lido. The first steamer anchored here in 1846, which is commemorated by a plaque. The monument of the old Helicon musical and literary festivals is situated in the splendid park lying between the railway station and the shore. Among the participants in the festivals were such famous artists as Sándor Kisfaludy, Adam Palacsi Horváth, Daniel Berzsenyi, or Judit Dukaj Takács. It's worth visiting the Cooper and Wine Museum of Keszthely, which exhibits typical wines of the North and South Balaton vineyards, besides a whole cask maker workshop and a collection of cooper's tools. Visitors can of course taste the wines either in the pleasant cellar or in the garden. We can compare wines of various vintage years and drink the wines suitable to various courses, at the same time becoming acquainted with the specialties of the Hungarian cuisine. The Festetich family acquired Keste in 1739 and had a majestic palace constructed, placing the headquarters of their estates here. Soon they founded a hospital and a grammar school in the town, then the first higher educational agricultural institute, the Georgikon. They were the patrons of the Helicon festivals. Their magnificent Baroque-style aristocratic palace is one of the largest in Hungary. Park is a reserve owing to the large number of rare plants to be found here. There are 101 rooms in the building, visited by countless tourists each year. Today it operates as a museum, library, and music institute. The mausoleum of the Festetich family is not located here, but in the town's graveyard. In the south wing, we can see the library, finished in 1801. It still sparkles in its original empire style. There are more than 86,000 volumes here. Historical, political, geographical, philosophical, and religious books of entirely different literary genres. Its collection of music includes the musical compositions of the Keste-born Károly Goldmark, as well as Pongrácz Kocsó's János Vitéz, composed here. The chapel, with its magnificent mosaic windows, have been preserved in their original beauty, and there are a further 16 rooms with furniture of the period. The walls are covered with portraits of the family members. Porcelain from the Hungarian producer Herend and ornamented arms are exhibited in the museum, rounded out by trophies in the chamber. A large painting portrays the famous stad of Fenekpuszta. From the balcony of the Classicist-style castle with its stable and outbuildings, horse buyers could enjoy the sight of the stad. The castle still stands today, though in ruins. Opposite the castle, we can see the remarkable Roman ruins from the 4th century. The lively history of this ancient Roman fort town is most vividly told in the colorful novels of Victor Egri and László Kossuth, perhaps relating the story even better than the ruins can. Looking at the blue and red parlor furnished with empire furniture and the mirror hall used as a dining room in the past, we can form a picture of the aristocratic Festetich family's lifestyle. Vonyardsvashegy is a small village in the hills. According to legend, 6 fishermen out of 46 were drowned in the Balatone while fishing on the lake one winter a long time ago. The 40 survivors then took an oath that if they were saved, they would build a chapel on top of the hill. The 6 fishermen are also commemorated by the recently inaugurated extraordinary group of sculptures and the Memorial Day organized each August. In Balaton Heritage, we can take delight in looking at the trophies of famous Hungarian hunters in the African Museum. From the city limits of Balaton Györök, the road leads up to the hill called Beautiful View, from where we can enjoy the marvelous panorama of the Tapolca Basin's basalt hills, the coffin-shaped Balaton Hill, the peaked Gulács Hill, and the entire western basin of the lake. Szigliget. Szigliget is one of the most beautiful points of the colorful, multifaceted Balatone region. It used to be an island standing out of the lake's marshy bay and one of the strongholds that belonged to the North Balatone border fortress system. The Turkish were never able to take it. In 1702, the Emperor Leopold ordered this fort to be blown up along with others. Therefore, only ruins remain today. In the courtyard of the lower castle stands the circular bastion with a closed protective passage. Standing 20 meters higher is the level of the upper castle, where the relatively intact old tower can be seen, which was once connected to the palace of the fort's captain. On the wall is the copy of a drawing by an Italian military engineer, Giulio Turco, showing the original floor plan and the view of the fort. There's an extraordinary panorama opening from here to the picturesque hills of the region bearing romantic names such as Pull the Fox, Hanger Hill, Common Stone, and Queen's Skirt. East of the village, beyond the old ferry dock, stands the fractured tower of the Avast Church, built in the times of the conquering Hungarian tribes. The splendid thatch-roofed terraced peasant houses were built in semicircles below the castle. The mansion of the famous Tóth Lengyel family is a restaurant today. Its chiseled gate with its coat of arms is the oldest record of the Balatone region. Balaton is an edifying example of extinct volcanoes. It's surrounded by columns created from lava and edged by forests, the so-called basalt organs. The center of Balaton is located beyond the ship port and the railway station. The sculpture of the great painter József Egri, the lover of Balatone, stands in the port. His former studio is located not far from here, where a collection of his paintings is on exhibit. The wonderful bouquet of the wines here is ascribed to the soil rich in lava, with its characteristic of preserving the warmth of the sun. Naturally, the double effect of the vertical sun rays on the slopes and their reflections coming back from the surface of the lake, together with the protection of the south slopes, also contribute to it. At the row of stands constructed from basalt stone behind the railway station, tourists can taste not only wines, but also world-famous specialties of the Hungarian cuisine. When visiting Lake Balatone, don't forget to taste the boneless pike perch of inimitably splendid flavor garnished with a slice of lemon and just begging for some glasses of Balaton wine. Taste the roasted meat seasoned with onions and pepper, the meats roasted on the spit, the lotzi meat roasted on glowing embers, and the barbecue, but above all, the stews and goulashes and the fish soup cooked with chili pepper exclusively in Hungary. We can climb the steep road leading to the top of the hill, but we can just as easily take a more comfortable trip by jeep. Our way is lined by vineyards and press houses while heading towards the top to the Rózsa Szegedy House, significant both in respect to the landscape and in terms of literary history. The Baroque mansion with arches and porch, and decorated with 6 semicircular openings, speaks of the love of the poet Sándor Kisfaludy had for his wife, Rózsa Szegedy. Kisfaludy was a significant poet of his time, whose 2 volumes of love poems written for his wife and legends of Lake Balatone gained popularity. It's no wonder that a street, a spring, and a lookout were named after him in Balaton. There's wine tasting in the outhouse of the museum, where specialties like ice wine and Rózsa Szegedy's vermouth are offered. The ground floor of the museum houses a wealth of information and memorabilia on winemaking. Upstairs, we can see the rooms, original furniture, and possessions of the couple, together with the manuscripts of Kisfaludy's works. A 100 meters higher up the hill, passing the spring, we reach a building once a press house in Kisfaludy's possession, now a restaurant. Walking on upwards, we can see the Rose Stone, recalling a popular legend. Leaving Balaton, the landscape transforms into different scenery. The stones of Kővágóös, the mineral water spring of Kékút, the pleasant small settlements on the shore, Ábrahám-hegy, Balaton Rendes, Révfülöp, and Balaton Szeped. This region, abundant in natural beauties, is called the Kali Basin. On the city limits of the village of Sáföld, at the foot of the slopes of Kiskörös Hill, stands the former monastery of the Pálos Friars, the one and only religious order founded by Hungarians, still looking magnificent though in ruins. It bears witness of the dignified culture and art of the Hungarian Middle Ages. From the terrace of the recently established geological educational path, the entire splendor of the region is before us. Four kilometers beyond Balaton Aquarium on the shore, a village formed by the melting of several former settlements, Dörgecse, is situated. Its most beautiful sight is the ruins of a church on top of Gernya Hill. The church itself was possessed by the guardian canons of Fehérvár under the reign of the kings of the House of Árpád. The leader of the canons kept a watch on the crown jewels. The ancient building used to be a single-aisled parish church closing in a shrine with a vaulted choir for noble donators, a vestry on the north, and a 3-story grandiose tower on the west, a unique church in the Balatone region. The arched twin windows on its upper level can still be seen, from where a magnificent panorama opened on the village and farther on the surface of the lake, even in 1268, the year of its construction. The region, rich in hilly vineyards and press houses, is an exquisite destination for both day trippers and cyclists. The small Balaton Udvari, with its 320 inhabitants, is well known for its old graveyard and the white, heart-shaped gravestones made between 1800 and 1850. There are similar ones in other places, such as Füred, but not in such a quantity. Károly Eötvös created a legend based on the gravestones in his famous book entitled Traveling Around Balatone. Urvegnesh. Its main site is a watermill which has been driven by the Pécsel brook for centuries. Opposite the mill, the Baroque stone bridge with 2 arches stretches across the stream with a statue of St. John of Nepomuk on it. A small church has been reconstructed from its ruins and a graveyard dating back to the Middle Ages above the mill. There used to be several operating watermills throughout the Balaton Highlands, 3 of them in Urvegnesh. This watermill, still in operation today, is a museum now, where an ethnographic and a folk art collection can be seen together with the relics of the art of milling. There was a mill here even in 1211, but the current building was constructed in the 18th century in folk style. The machinery and equipment of the mill are technical curiosities originating from 1889, manufactured in the Gans factory. The Roman settlement found near the village is also worth mentioning. Tihan. This unique land abundant in natural and historical values is the only peninsula of the Balatone, giving the lake its characteristic shape. It is a nature reserve with remarkable sights such as Lavender Hill, the geyser cones, and the echo of Tiffany that has faded away a little bit by now. The only relatively untouched group of cave dwellings of Central Europe, dug by hermits, is located here. Goat hoofs, the fossilized remains of the Congeria shell, are not sold any longer, but we can read about their legend in the famous book of Urvegnesh entitled Traveling Around Balatone. The main site is the Abbey of Tihan itself, which has become the symbol of not only the peninsula, but that of the entire Balatone too. Andrew I had a burial place for himself and his family built here, the only one remaining untouched from the age of the conquering Hungarian tribes. The church constructed above it was rebuilt several times. The construction of the abbey as it is today started in 1719 on the initiative of the abbot of the period, Augustin Leitch. The interior of the church, famous for its organ concerts, is radiant with its Baroque splendor. The huge main altar, the pulpit, and the abbot's throne are all lavishly decorated with wood carvings, sculptures, and gold. The wood carvings are the work of Sebestyén Stulhof, settled here from Austria and buried in the abbey among the abbots. The ceiling of the sanctuary was painted by great artists like Bertalan Székely and Károly Lotz. The three-aisled, Roman-style crypt is in the same state as when the letter of foundation of the Benedictine Abbey was written in 1055. We can see the copy of the letter of foundation written in Latin, with the Hungarian words and expressions used when marking the borders of the estates, making it our most valuable and first recorded piece of written Hungarian. Stepping out into the sun, we're impressed by the view from the church, also enjoyable from the terrace of the Rege confectionery. After having some rest and a good Hungarian espresso, let us walk along the Pishki Promenade, named after the famous fort captain, to the Echo Hill. On our way, ice cream bars try to seduce us, and the thatch-roofed houses built from basalt are also attractive, as well as the open-air village museum. The hexameters shouted from the top of Echo Hill, next to the statue Echo, reverberate from the walls of the Abbey on quiet evenings. The Doll Museum is a nice sight with dolls and toys from the last 200 years. In the Pottery House, we can watch the creation of earthenware, from using the potter's wheel to burning the clay. We can buy some pieces of the finished pottery as souvenirs or gifts. When leaving the village in an easterly direction, we reach the inner lake, which is a closed lake lying 25 meters above the level of Lake Balatone. The lake is crowned with the geyser cones of thermal waters. The most beautiful cone of all is called the Golden House. From here, we can see the inner lake and Balatone at the same time and enjoy the serenity of nature contrasted to the whirl of Tihan. Balaton Füred. Balaton Füred is the most splendid town of the Balatone region and the oldest spa resort of the country, famous for its sparkling spa waters. The closed promenade on Spa Square is the Balaton Pantheon, with its plaques commemorating those who contributed to the beauty of either the lake or Füred, or immortalized them in their writings or paintings. The first Anna Ball was held in a house owned by the Horvat family in July 1825 in honor of Anna Kristina Horvat. The romantic Döri Villa stands in Yokai Street, now occupied by a restaurant. The eclectic-style villa of the great Hungarian novelist Mór Yokai is a museum today. This was the favorite nest of the nation's nightingale, says the epigraph on the former villa of the celebrated Hungarian actress from the turn of the century, Luisa Blaha. The classicist-style round church has been one of the magnificent monuments of Füred since 1841. It was designed by Antal Fruman, who took the dome of the St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome as a model and made it proportionally smaller. It has long been an almost compulsory activity to order coffee or ice cream in the beautifully renovated Kedves confectionery with period furnishings. The Spa Square is the center of Füred, where the entrance of the world-famous Heart Hospital and the pavilion of the spa fountain of Lajos Kossuth Spring are located. The acrid waters have been drunk for 280 years by those suffering from coronary or circulatory problems or problems with the nervous system. The first stone theater with Hungarian-speaking performances formerly stood in the small forest behind Spa Square. The famous promenade located near the shore was named after the great poet from India, Rabindranath Tagore, who planted a linden tree here in gratitude for his recovery, creating a tradition by this deed. Each year in spring, the season's opening festival of setting the sails is held in the port. Balaton Füred can take pride in its one and only water ski track of the Bellatone region. Chopak was established on the gentle slope starting from the shore and is practically the gate to the picturesque Nostori Valley, connecting Lake Balaton with Veszprém. On the main street of the village, famous for its wine, we can find the ruins of a 14th century church with its intact western ridge wall and stone-framed portal. The houses and press sheds, done in folk style, reflecting their original state, are most magnificent. The water of the Nostori stream drives the only wheel of Chopak's other site, the watermill. Unfortunately, only this watermill and the one in Urvegnesh remained of the numerous watermills of the region. The tools of milling are exhibited inside. In the port of the neighboring Alsó-Őrs, we can see the first steamer of Lake Balaton, the Kisvaludi. Some of the villas of Bellatone were preserved in their original style in the village. Less than 3 kilometers from here, the main attraction in Felsőös is the 12th century church with a distinct Mediterranean atmosphere. It's a pure Roman-style building constructed from the red stone mined here, with the portal decorated with columns and other patterns, narrowing towards the inside and with softly shaped pillars. Opposite the church stands the pontiff's former mansion, today a restaurant. We leave the lake at Balaton Kanese, looking back once again from the top of the Lys wall. The Redstone Monument commemorating the Kanese-born romantic poet Lajos Sós stands at the highest point of the shore. This is the only place where bushes of Crambitataria grow with their bunchy show of white flowers. Glancing down, we can see the Marina Port, the most comfortable harbor for sailing boats on Lake Balaton.